breaking and entering, drunk and disorderly, law and order. A former prosecutor and a defence barrister, not your usual pairing. And the result? Conversations about crime and punishment that are guaranteed to get you thinking.
Welcome to Justice Matters, a weekly podcast with Lizzie Green and Jay Merchant. Our episodes are every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Justice Matters Pod for clips. Enjoy the episode. This episode deals with murder and rape. Discretion is advised.
Good morning, Jay.
Hey, good morning, Liz.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
I've got mostly a storytelling episode for you today.
Good.
It's not really about any pressing law reform or anything like that, but
Okay.
some recent activity in the courts on this topic. And again, this was requested by a listener. So I do
Perfect.
read all of the comments. And this comment said, could we cover their family's sleepwalking murder case?
Oh, sleepwalking murder.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I was intrigued
Oof.
because obviously in criminal law, we do teach about criminal responsibility when someone's acting, without their conscious mind engaged,
Right.
whether it's for concussion, sleepwalking, whatever it might be. So I had a little bit of knowledge, but I was amazed because I didn't know which case they were referring to. I was amazed by how many cases are out there that could be their family's case. And so,
Really?
yes, I went right down the rabbit hole. You know what I'm like.
Mm.
And I started looking into the history of what they call parasomnia.
What's parasomnia?
So parasomnia is disruptive behaviors or events that affect your sleep. And you can walk, talk, or make physical movements during a parasomnia episode.
So sleepwalking and stuff like that?
Other phenomena associated with,
Wow.
the brain. So I also then found a related issue in criminal courts, which is crimes committed while someone's suffering from sexsomnia, which is a form of parasomnia where you commit criminal sexual offenses while you're asleep.
So you're asleep and then what, raping somebody or?
Correct.
Oh, come on.
I know. So this is what I want to talk to you about today.
I'm sorry, but that's one hell of a dream, or
Well,
I don't know what it is.
there are many, many people who have been acquitted
You're kidding.
of sleepwalking crimes.
This is how to get away with murder all over again.
Well, it doesn't always work.
Okay.
I will say that disclaimer.
All
Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit about parasomnia. So obviously we have an expectation that for someone to be held criminally responsible, they have committed the offence, but they have done it knowingly.
That's right. They're of sound mind, all of that.
Yes, and it's, so not always like an element of intent necessarily, but you are aware of your conduct.
That's right.
So we have a defence called lack of will in Queensland, or unwilled act or involuntary act, where if your conscious mind does not direct your conduct, you can raise this defence and you'll be found not criminally responsible because you weren't aware of what you were doing.
Right.
And then I won't go into the legalities, but it
Yeah.
can happen in lots of ways. And this is the issue that comes up with parasomnia, that you could be sleepwalking or you could be some other kind of phenomena whereby your conscious mind is not engaged at the time that you commit an offence.
I'm just I'm thinking about the sleepwalking thing. I mean, I don't know anyone. I know there's reports of it happening and whatnot, but I personally don't know anyone that has said to me, "Oh, I'm a sleepwalker."
It sounds surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like how could you be committing a crime like murder while sleepwalking? And when I tell you the facts
All right.
of some of them,
Sorry.
you will be
Okay.
dumbfounded at the acquittals that have been entered.
All right.
But so obviously there does have to be, for the most part, pretty convincing expert evidence. And it has to be evidence that not only, does that condition manifest in the way that's been alleged, but they'll do testing to see if that particular accused is prone to those kinds of parasomnias. Do they have a history of sleepwalking? All of these things. So there is the requirement for expert evidence, but we've had conversations about expert evidence before, and I think you can find an expert to say what you want in a lot of cases.
I'm glad that there is some parameters requiring it. I guess the quality is, something that's up for debate, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
So I wondered, okay, is this a new defense? Absolutely not. I went through, and I think one of the earliest cases was from 1791, where an accused claimed he was asleep when he killed his wife with an axe. He said he was awakened from deep sleep by some noise around midnight, saw the dim outline of a human shape. In a state of terror, he grabbed an axe, hit the terrifying figure. By doing so, he killed his wife. After the murder, his mind cleared and he was found embracing his dead wife and crying, "Suzanne, wake up." The legal defense asserted he was not fully awake at the time. It occurred due to a condition called sleep drunkenness, and he had no free will to commit the crime. He was acquitted. Then 1846, quite a famous one, Albert Tyrrell was accused of murdering a prostitute and setting fire to a brothel before fleeing to New Orleans. It was alleged he cut her throat, set the fire, and during the trial, his attorney argued he'd been a sleepwalker throughout his life, and his acts occurred during an episode of sleep drunkenness, a period of impaired consciousness. So there was medical testimony supporting his claim, and despite the poor state of scientific knowledge about sleep and sleepwalking back in 1846, he was acquitted.
Yeah.
So he was acquitted. There was some attention on his case, and a scientist who had actually been doing some studies on sleep disorders came out publicly and said he was skeptical about Tyrrell's claims.
But think about it, though. This is earlier on, so they're going to more widely accept it without, and you know what I'm saying? Like
That's
it's
harder
new,
to disprove.
it's
Yes.
unheard of, and then bam, now everybody's doing it.
Then we had a Texan man in the 1920s. He said that he and his mistress were in bed when he heard a dangerous enemy. Fearing a secret attack, he went and put a pistol under his pillow. Later, he jumped up, fired shots, then woke up and found his girlfriend dead in the bed. He was convicted of murder, but the conviction was reversed on appeal on the basis that he was sleepwalking.
So he can get an appeal, but the Memphis 3 can't.
Correct. I know. In 1950, a Melbourne mother, Ivy Cogden, axed her only child to death. Patricia was found early in the morning in her bed with the blood-stained axe near her body. The mother had been prone to psychological conditions which had been treated by several doctors, and her defense was that she was sleepwalking when she killed Patricia, protecting her from invading Korean soldiers in Carnegie, and she was acquitted due to sleepwalking. And now that one, I think, doesn't raise the same degree of disbelief because there was this documented history.
Yeah,
and she
had psychological issues.
But the thing with this defense is that it's a complete defense. It's not a referral to the mental health court. Because if it's called sane automatism. So there's automatism is if you're acting as an automaton, your brain is not directing. And so we have recognition that there is sane automatism and non-sane or insane automatism, whereby you're asking, was it the internal workings of the mind that led to the automatistic state? But they have held in court that sleepwalking is sane automatism, which means that it falls under the defense of lack of will and it's not part of the insanity law.
No.
So that's the problem.
That is well, yeah. That's
okay. I also teach a case from New South Wales. So the offence occurred in 2004. The trial was 2006.
Okay.
The accused was a woman called Karen Brown, and she was charged with the murder of William Aquilina. And he had been in the process of robbing her. So he was an aggressor. He had attacked her.
All right.
She was very badly injured in the attack. She had a fractured jaw, I think, or an eye socket. She'd been badly attacked.
Brutal.
She was carrying a backpack with about $40,000. So she said she didn't recall shooting him. She did.
Yeah.
But she, soon after she shot him, she entered a hotel and said, "Call the police. I think I killed him." So there was a little issue there. She admitted she was the one who pulled the trigger but couldn't remember doing so. 2 witnesses who saw what happened saw she'd been attacked. She'd started to turn and walk away, and he'd gone and hopped in his car, and she came back and she shot him through the car window. So they argued that she was experiencing a brief period of automatism, and defense psychiatrists said that it was post-traumatic automatism at the crucial moment, either because of the direct effect of the brain injury or the emotional trauma. So she was acquitted. So not sleepwalking, but this importance of this defense because she was set free.
Yeah.
And there was deliberateness,
Yeah. No,
and that's
this was
one of the things we have to think about.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work. So there were guilty verdicts.
Good.
1994, Michael Rixkes accidentally murdered his wife during a sleepwalking episode provoked by sleep apnea. He said he awoke to find a gun in his hand, his wife bleeding in bed beside him. He apparently dreamt about an intruder breaking in, but the prosecution case was that he was angry with his wife for leaving him, and he was sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah.
So didn't work for him.
No dice.
2001, Stephen Wrights killed his married lover during a romantic island holiday, smashed her head, dislocated her arm, fractured her wrist, ribs, jaw, and skull, and then stabbed her in the neck.
What?
He told the Californian police he remembered nothing, though he had flashbacks where he recalled fighting a male intruder. His parents gave evidence he had sleepwalked since childhood, but he did have quite a past history of violence towards his victim, and so he was convicted.
Yeah, and I just come back to, think about it when you're sleeping and you feel like you're falling off the edge of the bed and you wake up, all right, or something happens and you just
jerk.
You just jerk or a knee-jerk reaction, whatever. This guy, and I can't remember, he said smashed her head, dragged her, did all of these physical acts and stabbed her in the neck and was still under,
That's
allegedly.
Right. Yes. So there was also a case from England where this was 2003. This guy, Michael Catling, cut the throat of his child's mother. So they weren't together, but obviously had at one time.
Yes.
Stabbed her 10 times as she slept in her bedroom.
10 times.
Mm-hmm. He claimed he had no memory of the attack because he'd had at least 6 sleeping pills, antidepressants, and about 14 pints of beer.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Because I don't know if I've told you before, irrespective of the sleepwalking, he's relying on drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
All right. And there is a case in Canada that just came out that said if you are so intoxicated, so inebriated, that there is a defense available. So this is an interesting one. I'm going to have a look at that one.
Yeah, well, we have it as well.
Oh, but this is voluntary. Voluntary, like you drink.
Yes, if intent's an element. So for murder, for example,
yes,
our section 28.3 in Queensland says even if it was voluntary intoxication, you can use it to show you didn't have the ability to form the intention.
Yeah.
Which I think is crazy.
Mm.
So, if you're going to kill someone quickly, drink a lot first.
Just get on the tank first.
Anyway, after he crashed a car with his daughter inside, he went to a police station covered in blood, said someone had attacked this victim.
Right.
And he had fled. She was found on her bed with her throat cut, 7-inch kitchen knife sticking out of her chest, and his bloody handprint on the wall. So he said it was sleepwalking, but that collapsed after an investigation by experts, and he ended up pleading guilty to murder.
Like, what I'm struggling with is this correlation between the acts and the sleepwalking. I guess I would have more of a easier time accepting it, and I don't at this stage, but I'd have more of an easier time if it was one act and there was one stab, as
Yes.
opposed to dragging them out of bed, bashing their skulls, where you're
Continued and
physically
sustained.
exerting
Yes.
yourself.
Well, look,
And I don't know. I'm not a sleep
no,
expert.
and I'm not either, but in the course of, teaching the elements of these defenses, I've read a few cases, and what the courts tend to look for with an episode of automatism, whether it's by concussion, sleepwalking, epilepsy, whatever it might be, they're looking for what they call the indicia of disassociation. So things like slurred speech, glassy eyes, a lack of memory, but also purposeless and undirected behavior. So if you've got a purpose or design to your conduct or to your thought processes, then it's less likely you were in fact disassociated at the time, because if your mind is not engaged, you're not going to be thinking clearly enough to make plans or see the next step or recall what's happened. And so when you hear about this continuous conduct that is overkill, you think, well, is that truly fitting, that idea of the indicia of disassociation? Yes, I know. The other thing that came up a lot was things like post-traumatic stress disorder and epilepsy, because cases that talk about sleepwalking tend to make reference to other cases where automatism has been relied upon. And so epilepsy has been deemed sane automatism if it is one version. So there's hyper and hypoglycemia. So that they treat them differently for whatever reason. And you can black out or disassociate because of seeing something incredibly traumatic. So it's psychological blow. But so let's come back to our sleepwalking people.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I had a couple of cases I wanted to talk about in a bit more depth, and one of them is a Canadian case.
All right.
And that's a case of Kenneth Parks. Are you familiar with his
the name
case?
rings a bell.
Yeah, so this
was
was
studying it in Canadian criminal law next semester.
This was from 1992. So early in the morning of May 24 in 1987, so the offence was 1987, trial 1992, Parks, who was then aged 23, attacked his parents-in-law, Barbara and Dennis Woods. He killed the mother-in-law with a kitchen knife and seriously injured his father-in-law. So nothing too startling so far. This happens.
Yeah.
But the incident occurred at the home of his parents-in-law, and they were both asleep in bed when the attack began. Their residence was 23 kilometres from where Parks lived with his partner, and he got there by car.
He drove himself while sleeping.
Immediately after the incident, he turned himself in at a police station, again by driving his own car, and told the police, "I just killed someone with my bare hands. Oh my God, I just killed someone. I've just killed 2 people. My God, I've just killed 2 people with my hands. My God, I've just killed 2 people. My hands, I just killed 2 people. I killed them. I just killed 2 people." So he went on like that. So he claimed he was sleepwalking throughout the entire ordeal.
Oh.
Between getting up at home, hopping in his car, driving 23 kilometres, entering his parents-in-law house, stabbing them, hopping back in the car, driving to the police station.
I am going to have to do a deep dive into this case because I am concerned at the Supreme Court of Canada.
So
if it ended up at the Supreme Court.
He had always been, apparently, a deep sleeper, had a lot of trouble waking up.
So, sorry, but do we stop at stoplights or do we just run through them? Do we have roundabouts? Is it the case that we signaling when we're driving to mom and dad's house?
Well, some people who sleepwalk have their eyes open.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. Like they look like they're awake, but apparently it's very dangerous to wake them.
Yeah, they get angry.
Or they get disoriented and that sort of thing. So he would have looked like he was awake, I'm guessing, when he drove.
All right.
But in the year prior to this crime, he'd suffered a lot of stress and his personal life suffered. He potentially had a possible motive for murder, he was a compulsive gambler and he had recently raided his family's savings account and been caught embezzling from an employer.
Well, it comes down to money.
Always. But there was evidence that several members of his family suffered from sleep problems, such as sleepwalking, adult enuresis, nightmares, and sleep talking. So he did get charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder. So they did bring him to court.
Yep.
He presented this defense of automatism. There were 5 expert witnesses that were not contradicted by the Crown. And the evidence was that he was sleepwalking and that sleepwalking was not a neurological, psychiatric, or other illness. They said he fit the profile of a bona fide sleepwalker. He could show the history. He was under great stress. He remembered little and his story stayed consistent. So one of the issues I think you might want to talk about when you teach this is that the trial judge only put sane automatism to the jury. So,
all right.
Yeah.
No, I am teaching this next semester now.
And the jury acquitted him of first-degree murder and second-degree murder, and the judge then acquitted him of the charge of attempted murder. The Court of Appeal unanimously upheld the acquittal, and they did not consider whether this was an issue of mental illness.
So did it get to the Supreme Court?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Well, the Court of Appeal.
The
citation was...
yeah, no, that's the Supreme Court. Yep.
Yes, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, then we had a guy who was not acquitted.
Okay.
So one where there was an acquittal.
Yep.
Now we have a US case, and this one's called Falater, F-A-L-A-T-E-R, Scott. So,
I think that was in Arizona.
Yes, it was Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona.
So this was 1997, the offence occurred, and the police were called to this house because this neighbour had heard strange sounds, screams, and he was peeking over the fence to see what was going on. And he told police that his next-door neighbour was holding a woman underwater in the swimming pool. So the police obviously were concerned.
Yep.
They arrived and the neighbour said, the pool's in the back, off you go. And they found Scott Falater's wife floating face down in the shallow end of the pool. Blood poured out of her as they pulled her out of the pool, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. The officers who responded then saw a man wearing red pajama pants, a white T-shirt, no shoes, and they went in. They ordered him to lie at gunpoint on the floor, and he was saying, "What's wrong? What's going on?" They asked how many people were in the house, and he said 4, me, my wife, my 2 kids. They could see blood stains on him, on his tricep behind his right ear. He identified himself as Scott Falater, gave his correct date of birth, but he seemed quite shaky, shortness of breath, trouble breathing. The kids were asleep upstairs until the detectives went and got them. And then they went and spoke to the next door neighbour because they popped Falater in the car and took him off. So he said that he and his girlfriend had gone to bed around 10:10. He heard screaming from the backyard next door, walked into his backyard. He could see movement, heard someone going into the neighbour's house, looked over the wall and saw the victim, Yamila, lying on her side several feet from the swimming pool. As he watched, she rolled over onto her back. She was moving her arms and legs, and then she stopped moving. A light came on the second floor of the neighbour's house, and Coons could see Scott Falater in that room. After a couple of minutes, the light went off, and he came back to the backyard. He stood over the victim for several minutes, then went back into the house. Then he came back a couple of minutes later wearing gloves, pulled Yamila to the pool's edge, rolled her in, held her head underwater with his hands. And that's when the neighbour went and called the police. So there was evidence that
just think of all the thrashing and...
Oh, well, and she was stabbed 44 times.
Yeah.
44 times. So they later found Police later found the knife, the bloody clothes, some boots, gloves, and underwear stuffed in a Tupperware container hidden in his car.
Okay, so we have the conscious decision to hide all the evidence after the fact. We've got the conscious decision to stab 40 plus times, and we have the conscious decision to drown someone.
Yeah. So the
Or
evidence
unconscious,
did
I don't
seem
know.
to support the charges against him. It was the blood-stained clothing, the planning. He'd put a Band-Aid on his hand.
Yeah.
Separate trips to the car to get rid of evidence. 5 of the stab wounds penetrated to the hilt of the knife,
Far out.
and at least 4 wounds would have been fatal on their own. So it was horrendous. Now, he was a devout Mormon with no apparent motive to kill his wife. At trial, his lawyer said that he was sleepwalking and had gone to the pool pump to fix it, and then she'd come out and startled him awake, and he'd reacted by stabbing her. Okay. He had a history of sleepwalking. He was sleep deprived at the time, and so they said he was not conscious
All right.
at the time
At the time.
of the attack. There was some evidence put forward by experts for the defense that showed his propensity for sleep disorders, and they did some testing on a polysomnograph, which indicated, he did go into sleepwalking episodes. He was under severe stress, and that is a classic trigger of sleepwalking. So the prosecution said even if he had started out being asleep,
Yeah.
the screams
That's
that
what
the
I mean.
neighbors heard and also their dogs were
Mm.
barking like crazy would have woken anyone from that sleeping state. They also said that his recognition of the need to conceal the bloody evidence was evidence he knew what he was doing. And so the jury deliberated for 8 hours and they did find him guilty of first-degree murder. So I think fair in the circumstances. What was interesting is you can read the record of interview with the police officer when he first interviews Scott Fallada at the station.
Okay.
And there's a lot of confusion. So it starts with the detective asking if he's cold. You okay? You cold? And Fallada says, I'm afraid this means that my wife is dead, as a question. And the police officer said, yeah. And then he said, you need to talk to me, reads him his rights. What brought this on? You tell me what happened. He said, I don't know. He said, I don't remember doing it. I remember I was in bed. I heard the dogs go crazy. I heard all the voices, came down, and you guys were all over me. God. And the police officer said, you remember more than that. And he said, no. She stayed in bed. She stayed on the couch downstairs watching ER, and I went to bed. He was just adamant that he had no recollection.
Didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
Didn't do it.
And he looked quite shaky. He, like it.
I mean, somebody would be a mess if they,
Had
even
just
if
done
they
that.
had done it or just had found out that they had done something.
And then they said, how did you get the blood on you? And he said, what blood? And the police officer said, the blood all over your neck. He said, here, I didn't know there was blood on me.
All right.
So I don't know, like he certainly was consistent.
Yeah, and there
with
was some
his-
confusion as to what was going on if you look at it holistically.
Yes, there
Yeah.
was. There was. But, what I find interesting is that 30 years on, he's still sticking by his sleepwalking story.
Yeah.
So he was interviewed in 2021 from prison for a TV show called 2020.
Yes.
And he said, all I can say is I do not know what happened. I do know for sure I never planned it. There was nothing for me to gain from it. There's no one else I can place the responsibility on. It's on my shoulders. I accept that and I have to move on. And he said, well, he doesn't deny killing her. He has no memory of doing it.
And he's been consistent all
He
the way
has
through.
been consistent. And interestingly, I read an article where his son, Michael, was interviewed. Maybe it was also for 2020. And he's, gone to visit his dad in prison always. And he said, we had such a happy home. He was a good dad. He's still been a good dad.
So there were no telltale signs or nothing even from the child?
No.
Wow.
If you read enough stuff, you can see things that said the marriage wasn't ideal, that there were problems. But I ask you to find any marriage that doesn't
Yeah.
have problems. Like
Well, that and
that's
the child's perspective is huge.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
if there was some impropriety, the child would be the first one to
And
say.
I don't think they were tiny children. I think they were, maybe preteen.
Yeah,
around
but
then.
still old enough.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely old
for
enough.
sure.
So anyway, he believes he'll never be released from prison. He said, "I don't expect it. I really have no plans to go anywhere but here."
All right.
So there he is.
He's content.
So he was convicted.
Yeah.
Then we had a case from 2022 in New South Wales. Now, this was a dangerous driving case.
Yep.
And it's not sleepwalking, but it is automatism.
Right. So it's a cousin.
Yes, related
cousin.
And he was acquitted. And I include this one because of the difference.
Yes.
In what happened.
Okay.
So Brendan Lidgard, was charged with dangerous driving causing death and 3 counts of dangerous driving causing grievous bodily harm. So on the day in question, he was diabetic. He had type 1 diabetes, and he had to take insulin regularly throughout the day to manage that.
Yes.
Now, there was a lot of evidence in the trial about, the dosing and that he would split his doses and what impact that would have. But the fact remained he'd been taking his insulin that day along with food, but he'd split his doses. Maybe it wasn't exactly the way it was prescribed.
Okay.
And so the argument was that he went into a hypoglycemic state, low blood sugar. He couldn't voluntarily control his actions. So he had stopped for fuel. He's a truck driver, got up at 4:30, did all of his driving, stopped for fuel around 2:30, had a snack, half of his next dose. He drove off, and he was seen driving erratically for a little bit, and then he drove off the road at speed into a rest area, colliding with a parked truck, a pole, a tree, and a covered seating area. Still at speed, his car continued on into the car park area where it collided with a parked car, which pushed that car into another 2 parked cars, and the families who owned those cars were just coming back to leave the rest stop. And as a result, an 8-year-old girl was killed and 3 adults were injured. His car still kept going before it
even
stopped.
then, all right.
So it was at speed. And so there was CCTV footage that showed him getting the fuel, getting the snack. They weren't sure when he ate it, then the erratic driving, and then there was the medical evidence about the hypoglycemia. And so one of the things that got me was that he received a phone call from a friend in that period of time right before he went off the road. So between leaving the fuel stop.
Because I was going to ask.
Yeah.
A couple of things, yeah.
The friend said Lidgard did not really say much beyond hello, and after about 40 seconds, the phone call dropped out, but he'd still answered it.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how disassociated are you for it to be a valid defense? If you can do some things.
But what can you do and what can't you do? Can you pick up a phone and answer it when you're still under, or you know
obviously.
What I mean?
Yeah.
I'm as confused as you are with that element.
One of the things I think that assisted him was that he had no awareness of the potential for that kind of incident to occur, that becoming hypoglycemic would mean he could be capable of unconscious conduct.
So he wasn't aware. So this was the first time something like this had happened then, whilst he was driving a big truck.
I know. And so, I include that because clearly there are differences between a claim of sleepwalking and a documented medical episode. But
I guess I'm struggling if you have something that even could potentially go down this route, and maybe they didn't know, maybe the medical, but you shouldn't have a license. You shouldn't be driving.
Well, yeah, I think if you are diagnosed with epilepsy, you're not allowed.
Yeah, my dad had an episode back in the day, and I know he was prohibited from driving for a period of time.
Yeah, so maybe that is something we need to think about.
Yeah.
But anyway, then I got to a 2025 case.
Okay.
And maybe this is the one our listener was writing about. I'm not sure.
All right.
But this was an accused called Ilkna Kaliskin.
Okay.
So she was 47 and she was accused of stabbing her husband to death in September 2023 after the husband was found dead inside their car at a place called Clonbinane, north of Melbourne.
Okay.
So they had gone, Ilkna and her husband had gone on a camping trip. So his name was Serda. And it was meant to be a little peaceful escape.
Yep.
And, you know, I think there were some friends with them. And then on the night of September 30, 2023, Ilkna awoke to chaos. So she woke up to the chaos.
All right.
Her husband had been stabbed. Frantic and confused, she drove 20 kilometres to Clonbinane where she called for help. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was too late. Serda died before they could save him. So she apparently was devastated. They'd been married for 25 years, very happy. She had no idea what had happened or why or how. And then she got arrested for his murder.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the moments right after seem actually pretty genuine, I guess, from somebody that doesn't know anything about this matter, where she drove, got help and all that kind of stuff. And if it was the case that she did it, and I mean, would you be so forthcoming, I guess, going to get help?
Well, you can't hide the body, can you?
No, but any type of evidence around there, any sort of weapon, I'm not sure. So,
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, she insisted she had no recollection of harming him. She said that a sleeping disorder made her sleepwalk out of the car top tent, down a ladder, and to a table in the bush where she grabbed a knife and then stabbed her husband to death.
Yeah. But I mean, my question is did she tell police this when she went for help, or did this come after?
I know. Sorry. For those just listening, I was laughing at Jay's facial expression and not at the facts of the crime.
Yeah.
Yes.
She often laughs at me.
I mean, if it was true that she was suffering from a sleep disorder and not acting in a conscious state of mind, then her moral and legal culpability would be different than if she had stabbed him maliciously.
Yes.
So in April 2024, she was released on bail so that she could go and take part in a sleep study in Sydney. Prosecutors received that expert report in November 2024.
Okay.
Then at a directions hearing in January 2025, the prosecution said that they were adjourning the matter to consult Serda's relatives in Turkey before they decided how they should proceed with this case.
Right.
It was set to go to trial in March 2025.
Okay.
In February 2025, all of the charges were dropped by the Victorian Supreme Court.
Really?
Yes.
Was it a stay or was it the DPP not proceeding?
Not proceeding. The court was told the defence sleep expert gave an opinion that could not be excluded, that she was experiencing a sleep disorder when her husband was killed and not acting in a conscious or voluntary manner. A second expert engaged by the prosecution delivered a similar finding. After this decision of the DPP, the family of Serda in April blasted the Office of Public Prosecutions and told Nine News they have been in hell since his death and believe the justice system has let them down. They claim that in the 26 years the pair were married, there was never any kind of sleep disorder mentioned.
Right.
His parents had never heard of this and they lived in a house together for over a month, so there's no mention of it. And his family are calling for restrictions to be put on people like Kaliskin who are freed. They said their concern is the community and her kids who live in the same house as her. The Office of the Prosecutor told the media the decision to drop the murder charge was not done lightly. After carefully reviewing the opinions of several experts, it was determined that the elements of murder could not be made out beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecutor called the case unique, saying the defence is not unheard of, but it's not one that regularly comes before these courts. So I don't know if that was the case that someone wanted to know about that I thought didn't even get to trial.
Yeah, and I guess we've talked about it earlier in this episode, the role of the expert, I guess, in bridging that gap. I mean,
So persuasive in this case.
this is so unclear, and you would expect an expert to clear it up, but I'm still unclear.
And I think what the family of the victim said, they're worried about the safety. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Because if you argue this defense successfully and it's an acquittal, you're free to go.
That's it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
No charge, no conviction, no nothing. Whereas if we classified it differently so that an episode of automatism, even if only temporary, was deemed some kind of mental disorder, then they would be subject to treatment or
That's right.
diagnosis or care if necessary.
If necessary, yeah.
And that could just be, I don't know, maybe a safer, because if they've done this once when they're asleep.
Let's let them out again so they can do it again.
Yeah.
I struggle with it myself, but I know, I mean.
All right. So then I just wanted to quickly tell you about my offshoot from my research, which was sleepwalking's one thing, automatism's one thing, but then there is this ability to argue sexsomnia as a way to avoid liability for sex offenses.
This is sexual offenses whilst you're sleeping.
Correct.
Okay.
So
there's just a lot going on in my head with this.
There is, again, a lot of, expert opinion and evidence about the existence of this. But I thought, interestingly, it was only added, so sexsomnia was only added to the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, in 2013. So it sits alongside
sleepwalking. So it is there, though.
It is there.
All right.
But so is sleepwalking and night terrors.
And night terrors.
So that identification doesn't translate to a legal outcome necessarily. Right. It does say that people may not be aware that they have sexsomnia. There are some potential triggers, including alcohol and stress, which is not good. But there are also treatments that you can have. It's unclear how common sexsomnia is, but it's thought to be rare. A 2020 study found only 116 clinical cases had been recorded in the medical literature, although it could be underreported due to embarrassment and lack of awareness.
But again, are we saying that it's okay that you're sleeping and then you commit a sexual offense, and just because it hasn't been reported, just because there's no real research into it, that it's okay? And I am struggling with this one.
Yeah. So I found a 1996 Canadian case.
Oh, God damn it, Canada.
Granger, where automatism was raised as a defense in the first reported sexsomnia case. So he was charged with sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl who had crawled into her parents' bed where he happened to be sleeping. Her aunt found her next to a sleeping Granger. She was crying and said without prompting he'd put his finger in her vagina. A psychiatrist acknowledged, as an expert in sleep disorders, testified he was suffering from parasomnia when he removed the underwear and fondled the child. So he was found not guilty.
All right.
Yes. There was then a 2007 case in Texas where a Texas man was acquitted of sexually assaulting a 12-year-old who was one of his daughter's friends and having a sleepover at his house.
Okay.
He was a chronic sleepwalker. 2009, a Georgia man was charged with molesting a 7-year-old girl, successfully pleaded sexsomnia, was acquitted. He had a history of sleepwalking and bizarre behavior during sleepwalking episodes. Back to Canada,
of course.
Luedecke, 2008. So sexsomnia was raised as a defense here. This was at a croquet party in Toronto in 2003. He consumed a lot of alcohol, some magic mushrooms.
Yes.
And was awake for 22 hours before he fell asleep at about 4 a.m., waking to find himself in the middle of non-consensual sex with the woman screaming. She said he looked completely incoherent, didn't know what was happening. He was dazed and in shock. And so the court was satisfied that the defense of sane automatism had been made out in his case with all of the expert evidence. The decision was appealed, and the Court of Appeal set aside the acquittal and ordered a new trial. But it was more so as to whether it was sane or insane.
Yeah.
So it was a question of mental disorder,
Right.
more so than did he actually do it while he was sleepwalking. I did read in something that the court were criticised for underplaying the fact that he was wearing a condom, which spoke to consciousness of planning.
Well, I guess, I mean, we've looked at a number of cases where you can pick up a telephone call. I guess the decision for the court is whether or not you can be in that state and put on a condom.
The UK, it also happens there. The English view of sleepwalking is more so that it's a disease of the mind. So they've, I think, introduced recently or more recently like a test where if there's an episode of sleepwalking, you're then looking at the cause and is it a mental health issue. So I think that's probably good. But sexsomnia has been treated as sane automatism in the UK. So of 18 known rape cases in which sexsomnia was pleaded as a defence in British courts between 1996 to 2011, 12 ended in acquittal.
Wow.
1 was found case not proven, and 5 ended in guilty verdicts. So I thought that was interesting. But I did also see just from August last year, there was a woman who was paid £35,000 in compensation after her rape case, she was the victim, was dropped amid claims she could have had an episode of sexsomnia. So she called police, told them she thought she'd been raped while she was asleep. She'd woken up half naked, but charges were dropped days before a trial after the accused claimed she had sexsomnia and she had engaged in the sexual acts while she was asleep. So they have, the CPS over in the UK, have apologised unreservedly for accepting that as any kind of an argument and dropping the case against the accused, but no trial. She got the compensation, but he was gone. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. But then let me just bring you to Australia because we also like to join the bandwagon. We have a 2008 Northern Territory case, the Crown and Spencer, where he was acquitted by a Northern Territory jury after an hour's deliberation. A woman who'd been staying with her boyfriend in his house testified she'd gotten up early to take her boyfriend to work. She came back, hopped into bed, and she woke at about 7:20 to find Spencer having sex with her. She was 21 at the time. He was 48. And so he said he was sleepwalking. He had no recollection of it. His ex-wife, said he used to try and have sex with her in the middle of the night. She assumed it was while he was asleep. Anyway,
really?
So he was acquitted.
Wow.
Another guy, 2010, also Northern Territory, Trent Pobar, had a history of sleepwalking. He was acquitted of rape. So that was interesting.
Like these victims, I'm sorry, they must be looking at all these cases and going through these thinking, what the hell is going on?
And there was one, I won't go into it in too much detail, but it was one from New South Wales where a dad was acquitted of like digital rape of his daughter, his 9-year-old. And the ex-wife in that case as well had given evidence that he had this history of...
Okay.
I know.
Well, that's I mean...
I know.
That all goes to the sufficiency, right?
And then we had just this year in 2025, a fellow in New South Wales, Timothy Rowland.
Okay.
So he was acquitted just in March of this year of rape charges after successfully arguing he experienced an episode of sexsomnia. The dispute was not whether he had sex with the woman involved or whether she consented. It was whether his acts were voluntary. So they had been drinking at a cocktail bar on the night of the alleged rape. They got home about 1 a.m. Once there, they drank some more. They took a naked bath together. Then the woman fell asleep in his bed. About 6 a.m., she woke up to find him having sex with her before she pushed him off, jumped out of the bed and left the apartment. And he was acquitted.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much going on in my head right now with this one.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
And I have all respect for, these genuine sufferers of disorders.
Disorders, absolutely, 100%.
But I think I get stuck on the acquittals, on the not guilty, and then nothing else. If you have this disorder and you're aware of it, I'm not saying you have to be locked up, but surely it has to be a different verdict to not guilty.
Not guilty.
Or no treatment or care or supervision. That's where I get stuck.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it from the victim's perspective, the one with the family that they wanted you to cover, for instance. There is no closure there.
No, there's not.
And it sounds to me like they weren't even consulted in withdrawing the charge. Now, I do think that there's probably needs to be more work done on this expert side of things. I don't know much about the science, but I can tell you it sounds like a lot of hocus pocus to me.
Well, I went in my research, I did find scientific articles, and I
figured you did. Them. I wasn't criticizing you.
No. But I read them to see what I could share with you guys, but it is so science-based.
Yeah.
And I am not a science person. And so I was like, I can't start talking about all of these
and
things.
I didn't. I'm not.
But I think it is definitely an area of study, but I think there is recognition slowly coming through, definitely in the UK. And I think even with that Ledecky case from Canada, we can't be so quick just to say, oh, well, sane automatism, not guilty. Like, I think we need more assessment, because if they've done it once,
well, that's
who's responsible if they do it again?
And that's my biggest concern is that, all right, they've been acquitted because of X, and now they're out in the community to commit further. They likely won't, because maybe they figure they got away with it. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And
we don't know, right? But that's part of why we need decisions on these matters, delving into them.
And I think we do have to have a high threshold. Like the one I didn't want to go into too much that involved the 9-year-old daughter. He'd said something to her like, we can never talk about this again,
Yeah.
And I just think, how far can we accept the sleeping? If there are things like that which indicate, like the Falada case, hiding the evidence. If we're trying to cover things up, are you truly disassociated?
Well, and now that we have case precedents, everybody's going to try it. Right? I mean, you've got nothing to lose if you take a run at it.
Yeah,
if you can hire an expert, and I don't know the experts, I'm sure they're
some very
good experts, but these days you can hire experts to find a position.
Yeah. Anyway, I did not think that I would end up talking about sexsomnia, but that was so interesting to me. I could have talked for 3 episodes, I think, on all of the stuff I read.
I bet.
So very interesting. But if it's not the case that was requested, please set me straight and let me know what I missed.
Yeah. And certainly, again, we don't lose sight of the fact that there are victims in this as well. And
100%.
And that these court decisions or the withdrawal of charges, they have lasting impacts on people.
Yeah, they really do. They really do. But that was it, Jay.
Wow, there's so much in there to unpack still. I'll be driving back to Brisbane thinking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can go do some deep dives.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, please rate and review the podcast. If you're interested in clips, check out @JusticeMattersPod on TikTok and Instagram.